What's going on, guys? Back here with another video. I was sitting there reading my Bible in 1 Kings 7 today, and Lord was speaking to me, and I just thought, I just had a thought and idea for a video here that I think the Lord gave me. So let's get right into it. I was reading 1 Kings chapter 7 here, and I just wanted to read two verses quickly here, verse 15 and verse 21. In verse 15 it says, "For he cast 2 pillars of brass of 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about." And then verse 21 says, "And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin." I probably am butchering that name. I don't know how to pronounce that. But Jachin, I don't know. "And he set up the left pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz." So what this is talking about is Solomon. Solomon here is building a temple. It's the temple of the Lord. This temple would be a place for worship and praise, a place that the people could come in and meet together and worship God. It's basically what the church is today. It's a temple, but it's not about the building, it's about the people. But that's exactly what this temple was to be. And Solomon felt it pressed upon his heart by God to build this temple. And so that's what this chapter is talking about here. And it's talking about 2 pillars that were at the front of this temple, at the entrance basically. And it was 2 pillars, and actually these pillars were so prominent that they were even named. The one on the left was named Boaz, and the one on the right was named Jachin. And it's pretty incredible to me, because what these names mean, Jachin means he will establish, and Boaz means in strength. So he will establish in strength. This entire temple, everything the way that it was made, everything that's in the temple, the art that was engrafted into it, it had cherubims, which are basically angels, and palm flowers and lions. Everything about this temple was to remind the people of God that their strength was in God. That was the entire thing. And Solomon set out to establish that very thing. He wanted every time people walked into that temple to remember that the temple was not just built by man. It wasn't about man. It wasn't about themselves. It was about God and God only. That God had built the temple. That was what even when he was working on the temple, all the pieces and all the materials that were cut and brought together were actually done at a different location. It actually wasn't, the actual building spot wasn't where all the pieces were together and cut together everything. It was actually in a whole different area, because he wanted the people to know and to remember that God built the temple and not the people. So he had all the materials, all the work actually being done at a whole different spot, and then brought together in that one area and put together. But he wanted God. He wanted the people to know that it was all about God, that it was in God's hands completely, that it wasn't about him and it wasn't about the people. And so these 2 pillars are a great reminder of that. The pillars literally mean he shall establish in strength. I love that. Absolutely love that. It's a reminder that kings rule by God, that they rule by God's appointment, and that they rule with God's strength. Look at David. David was the first king of Israel. He was Solomon's father, right? Solomon was the second king of Israel. Look at David. David was a great king. He was a mighty king. He was strong. He even as a kid or as a teenager, he was strong. And physically strong, mentally strong, spiritually strong. He was set in stone. He defeated Goliath with a stone and a slingshot. He was a great king. But the thing that made him great was not himself. It wasn't his strength. It wasn't in his wisdom. And it goes the same for Solomon. That's not what made them strong. That's not what made them kings. It was God. Everything that David had, whether physical, material, spiritual, just what, in any sense, was all due to God. It was all of God. It was God's strength. It wasn't David's strength, it was God's strength. And he knew that, and he constantly spoke about that. I might put the verse in after I finish recording. Maybe I edit it, but there's a verse in the Bible, in Psalms, I think, where David talks about how the soldier wasn't just a king; he was a soldier. I mean, a full-on soldier. Solomon wasn't really a soldier, but his father was. I mean, flat out, legit in battle, which is funny because the last video we were talking about spiritual warfare and spiritual battle. It all applies, but he talks about, he literally says, I may be butchering it, like I said, I'll put it in the video afterwards, but he says that the Lord teaches his fingers to war and teaches his members to fight. He reminded himself, and he constantly reminded other people that it wasn't him. It wasn't his strength. It wasn't his wisdom. It wasn't his knowledge. It was God. It was all God. That's what made him great, was God. It wasn't him. Everything that was good about David, or was good about anything he did, had nothing to do with what he did. It was God. And Solomon here, when he was building that temple, that's what he wanted to remind the people. He wanted to remind the people that God was the king. Now, he may be the king of Israel, but he's the little king. He's the little guy. God is the one really in charge. He's the one leading him. And, we are supposed to be leaders and fighters. And we're supposed to help people. And, we're supposed to be that little king, so to speak, of our own lives, But everything is due to God. That's what this video is about. It's God who establishes us. He's to be our foundation. As those two pillars into the temple, Boaz and Joshin, it says, he shall establish in strength. He establishes us in his strength. We're not strong. It's he that's strong. Whether you know me well or you don't know me, you can, you see me with these videos, you see me with this video and the videos that came before it, maybe you see some of the stuff I post on social media and blah, blah, blah. And all that's great. It's great. I got this YouTube channel and I'm trying to make these videos, and you see some of these, you see the product is basically what I'm trying to say. You see the product, but you don't see the actual work that goes into it. You see me, you see my face, you see the physical, but you don't see the actual work that's being put into it. You don't know. I can tell you right here firsthand, everything that's good in my life, everything, and I mean literally everything that's good in my life, is due to God and God only. There was nothing good that is in my life that is because of me. I'm not wise enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not courageous enough. None of that. Just as David wasn't, just as Solomon wasn't, just as anybody else, Moses, anybody else in the Bible you could think of that in your mind you see as a great person. It was all due to God. And the moment that they slipped away, the moment that they stopped focusing on God, the moment that happened, their strength failed them every time. Their wisdom flew like the wind. Think about Saul, right? I just messed up. I just realized I messed up. Saul was the first king of Israel. David was the second. Solomon was the third. Earlier, I think I said David was the first. Saul was the first king of Israel. Saul started out great. He was wise. He was strong. He was a godly man, right? And he was his physical, the physical part of him shined great. He was tall. He probably was pretty big. He was strong, But the moment that he stopped focusing on God and stopped following God, his strength failed him. he fell apart and he died in shame. I mean, literally died in shame. He died from his own enemies and he died by his own hand. He pretty much killed himself. That's basically what he did. Out of sheer fear, he killed himself so that he wouldn't die in shame by the hands of his enemies. Which, I mean, there's countless people you could think about. Absalom, one of David's sons, who rose up against David, rising up against God, trying to reclaim the throne, which is, symbolically, you could think about it as, us trying to reclaim the throne of our own lives instead of having God on the throne. Us trying to take that kingship when really God's the king. What happened to Absalom? He was sitting there in the middle of a battle, a war against David's people, on a horse. He has this long hair that was a sign of his beauty and his might, and people talked about his hair and how great it was. It was pride. It was a sign of his greatness. What happened? He's riding on this horse, and his freaking hair gets tangled in the tree, and he's dangling off the tree. His horse takes off. He's dangling from a tree, and all of David's soldiers comes up and kills him. Shame, guilt. Think about people in history, man. I know so many stories of people who took care of themselves physically. They worked out. Maybe you working out 6 days a week, eating the healthiest food you can possibly think of, constantly going to doctors, taking care of themselves, and all of a sudden they die from a heart attack. What happened? I've also seen people who didn't take care of themselves whatsoever, eating just whatever they want, never really exercising, not really take care of themselves, and do perfectly fine. Lived and died in their old age, died in their sleep, died in peace. You think of some of the most wisest people who's ever lived, in our eyes, who were wise, who were smart, who were intelligent people, die by their own foolish negligence. Countless stories. Wisdom is nothing without God. Strength is nothing without God, because there is no strength. There is no wisdom outside of God. I've seen giants fall, empires crumble, but I've never seen God's word fall away, ever. God always stands prominent. God always stands still. His word. Countless people in history have tried to get rid of this. Hitler, who literally burned Bibles. He burned books. Trying to destroy knowledge, basically. Trying to destroy any, there's countless people who've tried to do it. Satan has tried his best to destroy God. Destroy his word. His word's still here. His word's still going to stand until the end of time. It's the only thing that's going to stand. Everything you see, this physical body, everything around you, everything you own is going to burn. It's going to burn. It's going to disappear. But the only thing that's going to stand is God. The only thing. And if you're saved, your soul is everlasting because of God. Because God saved you. It's all to God. Your efforts are futile without God. Your strength, you don't have any. You don't have any wisdom. You can try. Like I said, you can go to the gym 6 days a week. Eat the healthiest food you can think of. Read 1,000 books a month. Which probably, that's pretty difficult to do. But read all the books in the world, man. From the smartest people you ever heard of. Take care of yourself physically. All these things. Do all the things that you hear are great things. Watch all YouTube videos about motivation and blah blah blah, this and this and that. And you could do all those things, man, and you may get somewhere to some point, but you're not going to get far. You may get sort of far on this earth, but what does that matter in the end when you're dead and gone? What does it matter? What about eternity? Eternity is what matters, man. The stuff you do for eternity, the stuff you do for God, the stuff you do in God, that's the stuff that matters. That's the stuff that lasts. You can spend your whole life taking care of this body, and you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You should. You should be a good steward of your body. This is the body God created. You should take care of it. But don't get it twisted. Don't get confused. Remember that First of all, it's God's body. He created you. But he's the one that sustains you. He's the one that keeps up your frame. It's not the food. It's not the exercise. It's not the knowledge, the books. It's not the hard work. It's none of that, man. That stuff don't hold you up. It don't last. It don't matter. But God holds you up. God will establish you in his strength because his strength lasts. Yours don't. Yours don't. And you know it don't. How many times have you hit the ground running and you were grinding and you were pushing and you were trying everything you could, and maybe you're doing a little good for a while, then all of a sudden you got burnt out. You crashed. And maybe you crashed hard. I know I have. God doesn't crash. Everything God does lasts. He provides you strength and wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And you have to remind yourself that it's from him and it's not of you. I got to remind myself of that. You know? God's building a house. A spiritual house. Well, literal too. He's building a house. But he wants to use you. Right? Just like he used Solomon. Just like he used countless other people in history. Countless other people in the Bible. He used them. But if they forgot about God, and if they started to think that it was about themselves, and that if they started to rely on their own strength, the building fell apart. The building got raided. The building got destroyed. The empire crumbled. The king died. He was slain in shame and misery. Don't forget about God. Give God the glory in everything that you do. Everything, all the hard work, everything that you do, give God the glory and realize that it's his strength that keeps you up. None of those things. It's not about what you're doing. It's about why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and who you're doing it in. It's about Christ. So everything that you do it for him. Do it for others. But remember that it's God's strength and not your own. Build that house that God has called you to build. But give God the glory constantly for it. Remind yourself and remind others that it's not you, it's him. It's all about God. Or it all will crumble. And it won't matter. It'll be futile. So I hope, I'm going to leave that with y'all. I hope that y'all got something from that. I hope this video wasn't too long. I tried to make it a little bit shorter. I'm going to leave a picture here that I made right before I made this video. I took a picture of a bunch of supplements and stuff that I have. Things that are so, healthy, you would think, And I put the Bible next to it, just being symbolic, showing that those things are not the things that make me healthy. It's this. This is the thing that keeps me going. When you see me, some of y'all watching me, or my coworkers and stuff, you see me at work. If you see me smiling, you see me in a good mood, know that it's because of Christ. I'm not even joking when I say that. I mean that legitimately. You see me working hard, it's not me. It's him. I'm going to leave that picture here. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe if you're new. Share it with other people. It's not about me. I just want to help people. I want to do what God's will is. That's my purpose on this planet. So I hope you guys enjoy, and catch y'all next time. Peace.